Welcome to this edition of BNV Sports. I'm your host, Earl Basden, and joining me today is David Bascome and Naquita Robinson, who head up B-Pro. B-Pro is a organization that runs women's football, youth women's football as well. We just want to talk about, obviously, the changes for this year. David, B-Pro is your brainchild, and you work alongside Naquita to help manage the whole thing, but give us a sense of what changes had to be made in order for this program to run this particular year.
Well, let me first of all, it's a pleasure being here. B-Pro, though, was my brainchild. Coach Keto was the one who, got it all started and encouraged it. Okay, and that encouraged me to move it. And what we have done, the first change is that it's no longer called B-Pro's Bascome Football Leadership Academy. So, because it has more depth than the things we're doing. Now we're looking at the changes that's going to be made, which is very important with the COVID measures that has to be taken. And also and the reason why these changes, because all our franchises are doing it, especially Baltimore and looking at Orlando. It's based on the government phases that we're in Bermuda. And what it has is that making sure that we keep up the standards. The first thing is that every player will get their own football. Okay, they'll be responsible bringing their own football to the training sessions. Also, every player will receive a mask, a standard face mask, and they're going to receive, bandana goes over their head, and it's going to be one that they can use during training. Okay, because we got to keep our social distance. With these procedures put in place, we do know that Bermuda right now is up to 50. I think we're in phase 4, and that means capacity is up to 75, which helps us because we just hit our 51 player mark. So it's a low concern. There's going to be a lot from hand sanitizing, but it's the education on it, just from making sure even our parents, we know parents want to watch the players train. So we're trying to do a couple of cool things. We have a couple of people have interest in streaming our training sessions for the parents to watch. So some parents will be set up, on top of the bank. We will be at the BFA field. So we're excited about it, but we're going to be very, very strict with our measures, and because it's very important for the player, parent, and coach's safety.
Naquita, putting all this together to manage it, because you do a lot of stuff on the field, but it's going to be a lot of stuff off the field as well. Are you feeling comfortable in what's been, I guess you guys have discussed in order to fulfill having these young people out on the field this year?
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. We have some more coaches, some younger coaches, national team players that have come on board, as well as one former national team player. The other senior coach is still a part of our national setup. So I'm excited this year because I get to spend more time off the field and just observing what's going on. So we have a great curriculum in place, and I'm looking forward to this year. This is what we've been working towards, and we just had our 7 players, and we kind of just did what we thought they needed. But in the 4 years that we've had it, it has not happened. And we added a new player just last night. So, processes are still coming on board. So this year, we have a curriculum, and now the players will understand the objectives. They will know what it is we're working towards and what we're trying to do. Because ultimately, it's preparing these players to represent the country, internationally.
Yeah. Looking at how things have developed over this is the fourth year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Looking at how things have developed over the 4 years, or going into the fourth year, where do you see the improvement, and what areas have improved?
Well, when I spoke with David about doing this back then, we saw where women's football was heading, and it wasn't heading in a good direction. And what we also noticed was that those who were playing, they weren't really technically proficient. So when we started this, we didn't start this to have teams. That was never our intention. Our intention was to have some sort of program that allowed girls to do some extra training to work on their technical skills. What happened is the numbers grew, and then the parents are like, well, if they have a league, can the girls stay as a team? So, we went from having one team to having two, to last year having three, and this year now we have 4 teams. So I do see the growth as far as those players being a part of the National Academy. There's night and day between those players and those that are not getting the type of training that's needed. And so it was a frustration for me initially as a coach, having to teach girls technical skills at the national level, because then I wasn't able to tackle tactical. So I wasn't able to talk about, playing out of the back or any type of formation or style of play, because they could get into those positions, but once they got the ball, it was going back to the opposition. So the growth in the girls' game has been tremendous, and the level is definitely increasing. We have a ways to go, but it's better. It's much better.
David, you also run a similar program that we've seen some of our young ladies attend in Baltimore. How much growth have you seen in the Baltimore area? And then when the girls from Bermuda come to the program, how is there a big gap in the way, or talented wise, that you've seen?
Well, the growth has been great, but not is not fast enough, right? And I'm saying that because it's more got to do is not just the game. A lot of players here, they're picking up their skills, which is great. And even in Bermuda, when Bermuda players come up, I can see the talent. But that's not the only thing. When I mean not fast enough, is because our education structure and system is so low. And I'm talking about especially in the US, it's continued to drop. This means is that the complexity of the training for 21st century, was still way behind to catch up, right? For the 21st century player, where the player should be. So what we're doing is that to help support that is making sure that we're really paying attention to the career development of the players, their leadership, their personality traits, the social dynamic, and that's going to help grow the player, right? And that's going to help. The talent-wise, seeing the growth, okay? And that's the easy part. The soccer part of it is the easy part, right? Because you can connect those standards. But if their football is going well, or the soccer is going well, and we can see that growth in the next 2 years, 3 years, if the education side and the leadership development and the mental strength continues to stay at an average, guess what? They never will. We take longer to catch up with complexity, and complexity is that using these things in a game. So that's one of the main focuses that we have to make sure in all sports, right? Is we're concentrating on from personality traits to social dynamic and how it affects from the education. Okay, if somebody is struggling in English or mathematics, right? When we're getting them to do these drills, is when you're putting complexity drills and would have to think and physically do something at the same time, there's that little gap, right? There's that little delay in what they're doing. That's where we are now, and that's where we got to make sure we keep that area up and make sure everybody understands what that means, because everybody comes to the field, they just want to play football.
Take us through some of the things that are going to be in place once they arrive. I know you talked about the fact that they're going to have the mask and so forth, but how did you come to these decisions on how you want to try and make sure it's a safe environment once they get there?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we didn't just throw this stuff out. Because we are aligned with MedStar Health. MedStar Health is our support system. And what they do is that they keep us connected with all the COVID measures for COVID-19 and return to play. MedStar also, what we done, we put down the measures and the requirements for Bermuda's phases. And for instance, let's go through some of the things that we're going to see coaches' responsibilities. The coaches, number one, ensure the health and safety of all participants. So from temperature checks, and asking the right questions. Coaches inquire how the players are feeling. Just little questions, because sometimes little people may not, they just go and play, right? Just ask them those questions. We have to follow all BFL health protocols and guidelines that's given, okay, through MedStar Health, and also that's put in place by Bermuda government. We have to ensure all players, okay, earn their own equipment. This is why we're giving every player a ball. They also get a vest, a bib, that becomes theirs. So when you're looking at from coaches, handling their own equipment, they're responsible for the cones, okay? The players are not responsible for picking up no equipment anymore. These are those little things, right, that's so crucial. If we're doing any indoors to outdoors, the social distancing things change. Wearing a face mask, okay, but when they're training and playing now, and if they're in connection with each other, okay, that's where we got to be very mindful and based on the standards is in Bermuda. So we're not doing anything that we have to follow the guidelines that Bermuda is putting in place. And what we've done, we merged the two. So we have a 7-page layout of COVID and responsibilities that our coaches, parents, and players have to go through. And just a quick minute, even for our parents' responsibilities, they have to ensure, the child is healthy. They should be doing their own checks before the young person comes to the game or for any activity. Just considering, and I know it's tough in Bermuda, but the carpooling, limited carpooling. It's just little things that they can be mindful of, because when you're picking up somebody else's young person, right, and you're just picking them up, you got to also ensure that they are, in good health. So staying the distance, making sure that the clothes are washed, the bibs get washed before the training sessions. Those are some things that each parent of our parents right now have these standards right down to the coaches, the parents, and the players. I mean, players need to also take their responsibility. They got a temperature, a thermometer at home. Take their own temperature before they come to training. We're going to do it there. So it would also help, right? It's washing their hands, getting them used to these things. So to your question, this has been thought out, but it's not something we just put in place. All our academies and franchises must go through this process.
And also, Earl, there's obviously procedures. Our training facility will be at the BFA on Tuesdays and Sundays, and there's procedures that are put in place there that we will follow as well. So when they come, just areas that they can and cannot access, and then having an isolation area should a player take sick during the training session. So those things are in place as well on our side.
Yeah. Naquita, I just want to ask this before we go. Having come up through football in Bermuda, what you guys have put in place, do you think we would have been further ahead had this type of connection been made years ago, as far as having the dedication to the technical stuff to develop?
Oh, most definitely. So, back in the day, we played with boys. Girls that wanted to play this sport, they played with boys. They didn't have a place to go where, they could play with girls. So when playing with boys, you just had it and you played it. There wasn't much attention to technical skills. I mean, most of my technical stuff I learned from my dad and my brother. One bounce, one touch, juggling, stuff that we did in the yard. But I think that for sure, because these types of academies have been organized in these successful countries for years. They've had this type of academies to help the girls grow. I'm happy with where we're heading in Bermuda. We have a Pee Wee girls league now. We have U7, we have U9, up to U17 right now. So everything is heading in the right direction. But if more females were allowed to have this type of training back when I was playing, then we definitely would have been further. We would have had many more players overseas playing professionally. So it's something that's needed, and I can see how it is impacting our game now.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll get back with you guys once you get the program up and running for this year, because obviously we want to see how things have developed for the start of the program. And I know you guys are chomping at the bit to be able to get these young people on the field and start teaching them the fundamentals of the game so they can start enjoying it.
Thank you. That's a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks
Well,
a lot.
folks, I want to thank you for joining us here on BNV Sports. Do enjoy the rest of your day.